AEW Revolution 2025 has just ended, and I have a lot of things to say about this. First pay-per-view AEW's done since World's End. I feel like the last few AEW pay-per-views, specifically the ones from November and December, were kind of disappointing. Here we have Revolution, which was a stacked card, and it's funny because prior to this show, I talked to literally all of my friends about this, and they all said the same thing. And I'm talking about people who don't even know each other. I mean friends that I have in different circles, and they all said, I can't wait to see the show. The card looks great, but I don't care about the main event. Cope and Mox are not really the most intriguing couple of guys to see in the main event. And unfortunately, the prophecy, so to speak, came true because this turned out to be a fantastic, outstanding show until the main event. The match wasn't like terrible or anything like that, but we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to tell you what I would have had on the show as the main event instead of Mox versus Cope. The reality is that right now, the angle with the Dick Riders or whatever, the Death Riders, it's not getting over. People are not into it. Even AEW's hardcore fans, they're just not into this angle anymore. So they need to call an audible and move on from this. And some thought tonight they would do it, but they didn't. And we'll talk about all that here in just a minute. But like I said, this was like a WCW pay-per-view from back in the day. Phenomenal undercard, main event, not so great. So we opened the show with MJF versus Adam Cole. I thought this was a very, very good match and a great way to start the show. I haven't really been into either of these two guys. I was really into them 2022, 2021. I think that was the peak of Hangman, MJF, and honestly AEW. Obviously, MJF keeps doing what I consider good in-ring heel work, but his character has regressed. And now Hangman, who was a heel for a lot of last year, is now a babyface. And I'm guessing he's going to eventually probably go for the title because this win, seems like it would take him there. But what's interesting is MJF got pinned. And that was unexpected. There was a part in the match where MJF got really emotional because he doesn't understand why the fans forgive Hangman and not him. And while that's kind of funny, it's also, to be honest, kind of silly because he's not supposed to care about that. So what ends up happening is MJF gets hit with the Angel's Wings, Christopher Daniels' move, because I guess Page is honoring Daniels after the match they had. And then MJF gets up and Page hits him with the buckshot lariat. Got the 1, 2, 3. Now, I'm going to tell you a real problem I had with this match, and I've talked about it before, and this is a problem that almost the entire pay-per-view had. Almost the entire pay-per-view. There was a spot where MJF did a tombstone pile driver on the outside of the ring onto a chair that was not folded. I cannot stand, and maybe it's just me, maybe you guys don't give a damn. I cannot stand how in AEW, a move like a pile driver, which can really paralyze you, is a very dangerous move because you're dropping somebody on the top of their head, is not a finisher. That should have been the finish. In another era, tombstoning somebody on a chair on the outside of the ring unfolded, that right there is like you're out for 6 months. And I've talked about this before. I do not like how AEW does this. I think that the agents in AEW, I've heard stories that the wrestlers don't listen to them, which wouldn't surprise me. But to be honest, man, I hate it. And there was a lot of that on this show. And it pissed me off. Am I the only one? Maybe. I don't think I am. Maybe I'm old school. It's how I feel. Mercedes Moné against Momo Watanabe for the TBS title. Mercedes continues to wrestle Japanese women and adds another notch to her belt. I don't think anybody on earth thought that Momo was going to win this match. This just kind of felt like just a match. Like, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't amazing. It wasn't as good as the Statlander matches, but it was fine. Like, it's a perfectly acceptable match number 2 on a pay-per-view. No complaints from me. I wouldn't go out of my way to see it necessarily, but if you're watching the whole show, you might as well. Then we had Swerve Strickland against Ricochet for the AEW number 1 contender spot. So this match is one of the matches on this show that maybe should have closed because, and I'll get to that more later, because they did everything here. This was a combination of high flying with hardcore. And I mean, they did everything. So remember how I talked about that tombstone a minute ago? There was a spot in this match where Ricochet hit Swerve with a vertebreaker on the announce table and dropped him. Now, a vertebreaker is a move where you hang the guy upside down behind you and then you drop. It's another variation of a pile driver. I feel like any move where you drop someone on the top of the head needs to be a finisher or something like a finisher, because those are extra dangerous moves. We've had wrestlers get hurt legitimately. So they did all kinds of crazy shit here. They had, I think it was Prince Nana's mom in the front row, and she was kind of, causing havoc, wreaking havoc out there. They did a whole spot where Ricochet took Jimmy Rave's robe, and that's crazy because I've seen Jimmy Rave wrestle live a few times. He died a couple years ago. Really sad story too. Like, he had to get some of his limbs amputated. Like, that story was, man, it's hard to think about, right? So they have a spot where he takes the robe and puts it on, and then at one point Nana tries to get it back, and then Swerve accidentally hits Nana, gets rolled up, didn't happen. So I'm watching the match and I'm like, okay, well, where is this going? Like, are they going to do a Swerve Nana split? No, it was just part of the match. What ends up happening is Strickland hits 2 house calls and gets the 1, 2, 3. And then he goes to the top with the double stomp. I forgot to mention that. And he got the pinfall. So that's the end of this feud, I think. Strickland gets the robe and then presents it to Prince Nana, and they hugged, and that was good. Like, that's the end of this feud. Let's move on. Oh, now again, this match, so much happened in this match, y'all, and I was getting tired. Like, have you ever watched a wrestling pay-per-view and just been tired because so much stuff happens? That's how I was during this match, dude. I was actually getting sleepy, and we still had a lot more matches to go. They followed this up with Okada defending the Continental title against Brody King. This match was more along the lines of the Mercedes match, where it was good, not great. Like, right now, so far, the Strickland, Ricochet, and the MJF Page matches were both good. Very good, I would say, except for the things I didn't like about them. They were still very good. And then the other two were just, they were good, but not great. How about that? But nothing too offensive. There were a couple of stiff shots in the match. Brody King has a very different style from Okada. And there were parts in the match where I wondered if they were really if they really had chemistry. Because it felt like a TV match. It felt, it was fine, but it felt like Brody was just put in there just to have a match with Okada and give him a win. At no point did I think that he was going to win the title. And, the match had a very weird pace. I think this match may have gone on a bit too long as well. I don't hate it, but it was just there. It was just a match. So, there's not much for me to say. And, again, they teased the pile driver on the apron, there was a Gonzo bomb that almost happened. And then the Rainmaker got the pin. So the Hurt Syndicate versus the Outrunners for the tag titles. This was better than I thought. This is the only match on the show that was a tag match outside of the pre-show. So I want to tell you that the Hurt Syndicate is probably my favorite act in AEW right now. They look like stars. They behave like stars. They're professional. I love the whole, we hurt people. The thing is, this is another match where the Outrunners had no chance. I mean, nobody believed they had a chance. They tried, and I actually like the Outrunners, but this is another match that I think maybe went on a little bit too long. It really felt more like a Collision main event than anything else, because the Outrunners are mostly on Collision, like they're not on Dynamite that often. This is another match where I thought maybe they felt like they should just put it on the show, but it didn't really need to be here, but it wasn't bad. The thing about these AEW pay-per-views is that they're long, especially with the pre-show. And this show took place from Los Angeles in the former Staples Center. And it's earlier there. It's 3 hours behind the East Coast. But these shows do go long, and they try to cram a lot in. And actually, I like that. I've talked about how WWE does 5 and 4 match pay-per-views, and AEW does like 9, 10, 11. So you are getting a little bit more bang for your buck. But there are some times where I'm like, okay, shorten the show a bit, and this show needed that. This is a match you could have trimmed out and put on television. Toni Storm against Mariah May for the AEW Women's title. This should have closed the show. This match should have closed the show. These girls, this may have been the best women's match in AEW history. I have to think about that, because I'm not saying that for certain. But it's definitely going to be in the top 9, top 10. I don't know why I said 9. Top 10. Maybe top 5. They destroyed each other. Now, I've said before, I do not like it when women bleed on wrestling, when they blade job. I don't like it. And this match, I didn't like it, but they did it, and it was effective to tell the story. Both Mariah May and Toni Storm bled. And let me tell you something. Toni Storm, those of you who saw the show, bro, I don't know if she messed up and hit an artery, but she was gushing blood. Like, it reminded me of Judgment Day 2004 when Eddie Guerrero got hit with a chair by JBL and did that really deep blade job. Her whole face was red. It was wild. This match was probably the best match on the show overall, and it felt like the end of a feud. Like, this feud is over. They did everything. Like, this needs to be... Go out of your way to see this, because the energy they put in, like, they had funny spots with Dr. Luther, like, and this is also the longest feud. Like, this match had more heat on it because these girls have a storyline going back almost a year. And Edge and Mox really don't. But you have to go out of your way to see this. It's very emotional, violent. They stole the show. It ended with like a power bomb off the stage. It was one of those moves. And through a table, and that was the win. And then what happened is, on the screen it said the end. So Toni Storm has now vanquished Mariah May and is now going to probably move on to the next thing. I hope that we finally get the Toni Storm Mercedes match, because we need to see that. Also, they brought out the freaking high heel shoe, the bloody shoe that started the feud, and that was a wonderful touch. This is how AEW needs to book everything. This type of booking where you have clues, foreshadowing, you have callbacks to events earlier in the feud. At one point, Toni Storm hits Mariah May with the high heel shoe multiple times in the head when she was bleeding. I mean, this match told a story. Go out of your way to see this. Trust me. We're about to get to the premium part of the pay-per-view, because that was the beginning. Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita, rematch from, I think it was All Out 2023. for the AEW International title. It's Kenny Omega. You're not going to get a bad match out of him. And this was not a bad match. He had a phenomenal match. I think people like Meltzer are probably going to overrate it a bit. But I actually would tell you, yes, go out of your way to see this one as well. Because it's Kenny's first singles match back outside of the match he had with Gabe Kidd in the Tokyo Dome. At least, no. Because he had that match with Brian Cage. I guess his first pay-per-view match back. And this is a great match to show people, like, if you want to get them into wrestling. Because you had some story stuff. You had Don Callis out there. You had history. And the commentators actually... Because I've been critical of the commentary team in AEW in the past. Not really a big fan of, Excalibur's commentary. But they told the story about how Kenny discovered Takeshita, then turned on him. Don Callis was great on commentary. Again, go out of your way to see this one. Lots of near falls, V-triggers. They teased the one-winged angel multiple times. Kenny hit a poison rana that I thought was oh my God, he took his head off there. And then Omega ended up actually getting the pinfall with a crucifix pin. It was a flash pin, like a takeover, almost like a magistral. And that tells me the feud's going to continue because Kenny did not beat him with the one-winged angel, and I'm all for it. Do the rematch at Dynasty, or Double or Nothing, whatever you want, and move on. So Kenny wins the Continental title. He got Pyro. I don't think that belt means anything. I've said that before. AEW has way too many titles, don't mean anything. I hope that when Kenny wrestles Okada at All In Texas, I hope that they unify the Continental title with the International title. Actually, I fucked up. No, Kenny won the International title. See, that's what I'm saying. There's so many belts I get them mixed up. You don't need the TNT title. You don't need all these belts. There's too many titles. Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher. This was... I don't even know how to describe this. Again, another match that should have closed the show. There were a lot of storytelling elements here. A lot of callbacks to Ospreay and Fletcher's history. Okay, so people say the greatest cage match in AEW history was the Young Bucks against the Lucha Bros. This one may have topped that one. We saw a lot of Ospreay's familiar, big moves, and we saw, obviously, Fletcher do the best he could, but there were so many story elements. There were parts of the matches where they were talking to each other. Kyle Fletcher was, screaming at Kenny. There was... not Kenny, I'm sorry, Will Ospreay. Just... Mark Davis came down at one point, tried to interfere. Ospreay overcomes the odds of the Don Callis family. And he basically hit the Tiger Driver 91. And again, this match also had blood. See, people were saying, with the Elimination Chamber... Why didn't Sammy and Kevin have blood? And it's because Cody bled in the angle to close the show when Cena went heel. Right? Now, should WWE have put blood in that match too? Maybe. I mean, AEW's philosophy here is they're going to give you everything. So, there were 4 matches on this show that had blood. WWE would only do that for 1 match. Unless you're talking about way back in the day. Because back in the day, especially outside of some of the other territories, you would have a lot of bloody matches. Usually not 4 though. AEW almost gives you too much. But it's part of the buffet table of wrestling. Go out of your way to see this match, dude. I think this match elevated Kyle Fletcher, even though he lost. I think he actually showed that he can hang in a main event spot, this should have closed the show. This or the Mariah May match. Because they both had like, both the Mariah May match and this match had like long buildups going back to last summer. So that to me, I think, is more important than Moxley and Cope. But it's the AEW World Title, therefore it must close the show. And that is what closed the show. So Jon Moxley and Cope for the AEW World Title. I was dead tired during this match, but I was still trying to watch it, and I was wondering how they were going to even come close to matching up what we saw in the Mariah May match, in the Kenny Omega match, and the Will Ospreay match, and they didn't. They just didn't. Not to say this was bad. It wasn't. However, the second part of this match, I think, was very terribly booked. Tony Khan can put together a good pay-per-view because the talent roster will always elevate the show. But I don't know who put this together, but it made everyone look stupid. Like, there were really dumb things about this match. So I'll go through it with you. They have their match. Then we start, bloody. We start seeing, you know how it is with Moxley, bro. You're going to get that every time. So Wheeler Yuta comes down. The guy who was teasing leaving Moxley. And as he's coming down, I said, oh, let me guess. He's going to stay with Moxley. And he did. Everybody saw it coming. It's stupid. Moxley abuses him, but he's still going to be loyal to him because it's obvious. I don't know if Tony Khan thought it was going to be a surprise. Nobody was surprised, TK. Wheeler Yuta gives Mox the briefcase with the title in it, and then here comes Jay White. And then he goes after Wheeler Yuta, right? Then what happens is Jay White grabs the briefcase and he tries to hit Moxley with it, and he hits Cope with it. Stupid. You people are stupid. Like, nobody here was smart, but I'm not done. There's more. This is so convoluted, man. This is very similar to what happened in the last two pay-per-views. So Moxley and Bryce Remsburg are arguing, right? And then Copeland hits the spear, gets a 2 count. And then he goes for another spear, then a third. And he was about to make the 3 count, but then somebody pulls Bryce out of the ring with a hoodie, and it's Christian. He pulls out the contract and signs it. So Christian just made it a 3-way. Why didn't Christian just let Edge pin Moxley and then cash in after the match? Why would he pull Edge out, make it a 3-way, and then go in there and try and win the match, making it more difficult to win because it's a 3-way and there's 3 guys and they can break up pins? This is fucking stupid. This made Christian look like an idiot. All these guys were idiots. So the match becomes a 3-way. So Christian, God, it was so dumb, dude. Why do you just let Edge pin him and then you pin Edge? It's dumb, man. It's dumb. So Christian spears Edge, only get the 2 count, and then he goes for the unprettier, the kill switch, but then Jon Moxley comes in with the choke, and he's about to put his hand on top of Copeland, but get the 2 count, and then Moxley chokes out Christian and retains the title. You stupid fuck. Why did you try to fuck over Adam Copeland during the match with Mox? Let him pin Mox, then you take on Edge and beat him. Instead, you made it a 3-way, which allowed Mox to beat you, and Edge didn't even get pinned or submitted. Horrible. Just horrible. And guess what this means? More shitty Dynamites with the Boar Horsemen, led by Dick the Boozer, as Jim Cornette would say. So Mox is leaving through the crowd. Then Prince Nana appears and looks at him, building up the next match. And then Swerve is up on the balcony and dives down onto everyone. This is being done to build up the next pay-per-view's main event, which is Moxley versus Swerve for the title. I do not want Darby Allin to win that title. He went to Mount Everest because he's an idiot. He could have just stayed and won the title. Instead, he went to Mount Everest. So that means that TK is going to keep the title on Jon Moxley until Darby comes back. And I hope that's not the case because, number one, Moxley's not over right now with this storyline. He's just not. Look at the numbers. People don't want to see it. Number two, I have wanted Swerve to get another title reign since he lost the title. The first time he won the title, I loved his title reign. Then he loses to Bryan to give him the feel-good moment. Then that got moved to Moxley. Swerve needs to pick up where he left off and go after Mox and win the title. I swear to you, if AEW Dynasty ends with Moxley retaining, there is no defending it. Even the AEW weirdos on Blue Sky and Twitter who treat AEW like they own it, who think that Tony Khan is their friend and defend everything they do, even they are sick and tired of this storyline. And Swerve and Mox is a fresh match. Swerve needs to beat him for the title. End this freaking story. Let Swerve win. Don't wait for Darby. Let Swerve win the title. Swerve is a better wrestler than Darby, in my opinion. He has a better look. He has more charisma. I know I sound like I'm shitting on Darby. I'm really not. Darby has a place on that roster. But Swerve is a star. Swerve looks and acts like a star. Swerve needs to be the world champion again. Swerve needs to beat Moxley. But I just know that they're not going to do it because of Darby. Because they want him to beat Moxley. I don't care about that. Call an audible and let Swerve win. So this show, that main event was not very great. The crowd was getting really tired. The idiocy of the decisions made here. Jay White looked dumb. Christian looked dumb. Just, man, it was... But the rest of the show was fabulous. Completely fabulous. Go out of your way to see Mariah May and Toni Storm. That's how you blow off a feud. Go out of your way to see the cage match. If you like the New Japan style wrestling, go watch Takeshita and Omega. And if you have time, check out MJF and Hangman. But if you're going to watch this show, I would recommend, if you see the entire show, fast forward to the main event. Or just don't watch it at all. Because it really pissed me off. And I am far from the only one. Those are my thoughts on Revolution 2025. Man, don't fuck this up. Let Swerve get the title next month. I'm out, y'all. Take care. See you soon.